The time now has reached 6 p.m. in beautiful Pflugerville, Texas. So we will call the meeting to order of the Pflugerville Community Development Corporation. And for our opening, we will pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and the Texas state flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Our next item on the agenda are items of community interest. Do we have any of those to report?
Been cold.
Board members, we have the PCDC table for A Night in Paris. It's for the Pflugerville Education Foundation Annual Fundraising Gala. We do have three. Have we filled those three? We have, okay. So we have a full table, and although Crystal and I will not be present, hope you all dance till your feet hurt. And we're excited just to be able to continue that partnership.
Have chocolates.
I heard they have cake, so I'm a little upset that I'm not going to be able to go. You guys are going to learn I love dessert. But yeah, it's a great time. I keep hearing about it, and I hope we are able to kind of mark it off for next year so I do not miss it. So, was there anything else on there? Also, just want to quickly, we're not going to go into detail about this. I just wanted to put it in front of you. You can take it home, chew on it a little bit, review it. This was presented by Austin Business Journal. About 199 business executives from Austin did the survey to kind of talk about the economic outlook for Texas and for the nation. I thought it was really interesting to share, just so folks can kind of get a glimpse or a glance into what the minds of executives are thinking and feeling about the economic outlook for not only Texas, but for the nation as well. So
Do you know when they did the survey or whatever?
it was, I want to say it was late 2024 that they did it. But when I read through it, it seemed like it was earlier this January. So it was kind of confusing, but they didn't.
Prior to the new administration.
Well, it was after the new administration. So it was
Post-election.
Yeah, post-election, yes. So somewhere around that December, early January kind of time period.
Prior to the new administration walking in the door.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Any other items of committee interest? So moving on to item 4, public comment. In accordance with the Texas Attorney General's opinion, any public comment that is made on an item that is not on the published final agenda will only be heard by the PCDC board. No formal action, discussion, deliberation, or comment will be made by the PCDC board. Each person providing public comment will be limited to 3 minutes. Is there anyone?
Not at this time.
This office did not receive any requests for public comments.
Okay. No one has shown interest in speaking at this time for that purpose. So this item we will now go to item 5, our regular meeting. The first item of business, 5A, is to approve the January 22nd, 2025 annual meeting minutes.
Mr. President, I move approval of 5A.
Second.
Oscar.
So Mayor Gonzalez made the motion and Oscar has seconded. And for this first time, I'm going to go around and we'll make a vote. So I vote aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. The next item is item 5B. And this is a discussion and presentation regarding Project Greenfield. And I will turn the floor over to our Executive Director, Mr. Jerry Jones.
Good afternoon, Board. Just wanted to give a quick update. We went and, in fact, our Board President went, put on a brand new suit to go and sign the closing documents for the Project Greenfield. And so we received the keys for the property. The carrier submitted those to us maybe about 2 days after the signing. Recently, we met with city staff. We probably have met with city staff maybe 2 or 3 times at this point to just kind of just get a catch up, lay of the land, so to speak, as to where Project Greenfield, just kind of background story on it, who were the staff, the city staff players that participated in the conversation as it came to the PCDC to make that decision to purchase the property. We have met again with Thomas, who we shared with him in March. There will be a presentation the same presentation that was made to the city council 2 weeks ago will be made to this body in March during the March board meeting. I'm going to defer my thoughts on the presentation until after the board has had a chance to review and hear it and kind of get an understanding as to what the presentation presented. It's conceptual. It's not ironclad. It is very high concept, primarily thoughts that sought the council's perspective based off of the concepts. Kind of just wanted to hear what the council had to say. They will be coming to the board in March in order to receive comments and thoughts about from the board. And so I'll leave it at that when it comes to that portion. Just wanted to give you guys an update and share with you that the property has been purchased, the closing documents have been signed. We are now working, well, we're not working. Let's stop for a second. We want the presentation to be made to the board so the board can then hear where we are, and then the board can give me directive on where we should go. So let me say it that way. So we should have a presentation in March. If anyone has any questions, I yield.
And hearing no questions at this time, I would suggest, if you've not, it's the January 28th City Council meeting. It's the work session portion. It started at 5 o'clock. So if you've not observed that online, it would be informative to hear the consultants, Brian Adams and Jennifer Boss and their team as they present to the City Council.
Is this consultants that, we didn't engage the consultants, right? The city did.
PCDC did not.
No.
These were efforts. And again, it's even addressed partially in the presentation on January 28th regarding the city's engagement with those consultants for the 30,000-foot view. So I look forward to the March presentation. Let's move on next to our item number 5C that will also be led in the discussion by our executive director, and that is item 5C, discussion regarding the Pflugerville Community Development Corporation's executive goals and priorities. Harry, it's yours.
So board members, I wanted to make this, I know that typically when we discuss personnel issues, I know the attorney was looking at me and going, let's put this in executive session. But for me, I prefer it to be public, just because I want the public to get an understanding of what I'm sharing as a draft document of goals and objectives. And so I feel like shows accountability to be able to show, here's what I'm saying that we can do in year one. And then citizens and the board, the council can hold my feet to the fire on it publicly. And so I just think that it's the best way. It's transparent. It creates an opportunity for dialogue. And so I'm going to read this document. I'm gonna try not to read all of it, okay? I'm gonna kind of get to the more important parts. But what I did want to stress is that it is an honor to join you all as the new executive director of Pflugerville Community Development Corporation. I wanted to kind of go through and talk about and this is all draft. So I'm putting this in front of you all. Your comments, your directives will shape what the final outlook of this is. So just because it's on paper does not mean that it's binding. You all may say, well, we would like to see you do X, Y, and Z, or less of this and more of that. So it's a draft document. So enhancing our retail landscape. I do recognize that we are 4B. We fall within a threshold of population, which does create some barriers on what we can do as it relates to retail, but we can do infrastructure for public infrastructure that has benefits to sales tax incentives. And I'm looking over here at the attorney, and he's losing some color, but he hasn't completely passed out.
I'm with you.
Okay, all right.
I also feel that EDCs can contribute for more community and park projects and free up cities to give those incentives directly too if they want. So I think there's ways to accomplish your goals.
And that's kind of where I want to explore. You probably won't hear me say no right away, but more so, I will if it's not the return on investment that I think you all are looking for as a board. If it's just a free me, give me kind of situation, you probably won't even hear me bring it up. But if it's got a return on investment and we know that it's going to be good for the community and it's going to provide sales tax and return on investment, that's where we're looking at. How do we increase the retail landscape in Pflugerville, investing in the community's future? We already contribute about $300,000 annually to parks and recreation. One of the conversations that we had with city staff was putting those dollars, those annual dollars, in a fund that allows, instead of them being forced or having to quickly spend those dollars every year, they may want to let those dollars sit in there for a second and kind of build up. If you switch it over to a fund, a capital outlay fund, you can kind of let those dollars roll. If you keep them in the budget, they're going to go to fund balance every year. On every end of the year, they're going to go to fund balance. So the finance
Question,
Sorry.
sorry to interrupt. The comment you just made, does that mean, is PCDC still involved in any disbursements of from that fund, or is it strictly in the auspices of the city?
So I'm the executive director, so I execute what you all direct. But the suggestion that I would make to you is, for the purposes of continuity and efficiency, is that $300,000 is there on, it's like auto pay draft. And that is the contribution for Parks and Recs. And it's going to be up to them to show when the audit comes that they used it for Parks and Rec purposes.
Okay, thank you.
It relieves us of having to do oversight, but at the end of the day, they'll have to provide the oversight for their own accounting purposes. So, and again, one eye is, I'm probably going to look split-eyed soon, because one eye is always looking at the attorney, because I don't look good in orange with black numbers on the back.
So the capital outlay fund essentially does not, if we have 300,000, it's not going to force us to spend the 300,000.
We won't have to spend it. It will be a separate fund at that point. And every year our budget would take $300,000 and put over into that fund. Now, if they don't touch it one year, let's say they just decide, because right now the parks, the average year for parks is 5 years now. So all of the parks, they've done significant work in the area. And obviously through the partnership of this organization, the average year on park infrastructure is about 5 years old. So that's really like, you look across some of these other cities.
Redone all.
Yeah, I mean, you don't see that in other cities.
But when you're saying the $300,000 would be in that line item under Parks and Recreation or wherever it's going, and if it's not used, it then goes to the fund balance. Is it city fund balance or PCDC?
It doesn't go to fund balance at all. It will literally sit there in perpetuity until it's spent. And every year, 300,000 will go into that fund every year until it is spent. If you decide to touch it, maybe 5 years later, then you know what you have in it and you get to
So
use
let
it
me
towards
ask this
parks.
question.
The interest payments associated, yeah? With the capital outlay fund?
That's part of the conversation.
Is this?
That's a
Sorry,
part of
what
the
was your
conversation.
question?
So with this capital outlay fund, it's like if we don't decide to touch it, and then say 5 years down the line, when we need to create a park, we will continue to maybe interest.
I don't think that is clearly defined.
No, it's not.
So my question was, did our board decide to move that money to the city line
The
item?
fund? No, that has not been moved as of yet. So previously, it was about 1.6 million is budgeted. 1.3 is budgeted this year or 1.6?
600,000 for community and 1 million for something else in infrastructure.
But altogether in the community engagement line item is 1.6. So at 1 year it was 300,000. And then the city didn't spend the 300,000. So they asked, could it be rolled over? And it was rolled over. And then the 600,000 went towards the park improvements that were done at the sound stage for
Okay, so
the,
I'm still, Darrell, help me here.
I'm with you, I'm listening.
am I on a rabbit hole going?
No.
Okay.
What I'm still trying to get a handle on is if we voted previously, when I say we, the board, whether it was this board or a previous board, to appropriate those community engagement funds to the city line item, I'm trying to figure out when that happened and if it happened.
Oh,
Yes.
so they sent a request to, historically, they sent come up and.
So we're giving money away and I want to know how that.
Yeah,
Well, we're
so there is a
contributing funds
policy
to-
that was created in 2022 called a Community Engagement Fund Policy. And basically what would happen is this board or the previous board agreed to set aside 350,000 a year for workforce and 300,000 a year for community engagement. And the community engagement policy says that will cover Parks and Rec, transportation, or even another organization that comes to us and wants to match for something in a public infrastructure.
Okay, stop right there. Other organization, but now you're saying that, again,
Yes, sir.
help me, that those funds are appropriated to the Parks and Recreation Department in a line item or budget, correct? So
They're-
can an organization come to the Parks and Recreation and request funding from the city?
No. So what I'm saying, I'm proposing that if they're going to continue to come every year for the $300,000,
The city.
that the city, if the city is going to come every year, because they came and asked for the 300,000 and then they didn't take it. And then they came back and said, hey, can you roll the 300,000 over into 600,000? And then they came and took the 600,000. If they're going to come every year to take $300,000, we might as well just go on and create a fund for them. That's the recommendation. Now, you all can look and go, well, no, we don't want to give them 300,000 every year. We want them to come to us and say what they want to do with the 300,000, and then we'll grant it to them if that's what if that's what the board so
I'd rather
chooses to
do
do.
that, since they didn't use the money before, they didn't either have projects or had whatever. I'm just concerned about what projects are appropriated or funded and whether they're city projects or organizational projects. And I think, well, there'd have to be additional authority there from the city council to even do that. So
Correct. And I mean, that's a good point. If the 300 continues to just go to the city, it pretty much shuts the door on a community organization that may want to come and plant trees, and come and say, hey, if we're going to buy $5,000 worth of trees, could you buy $5,000 worth of trees? If
As
we,
long as we,
yeah,
we say city, and I'm kind of speaking as a person, not a mayor. City takes our $300,000 and then they choose to do with whatever and so forth, and we're okay with that. If that's the way we decide to go.
if that's what the board decides to go. Not Jerry, but that's what, that's the direction that the board
I
decides
mean,
to go.
it's been put to good use, but at the same time, I'd like to see what before we just give it to the city, again, speaking, I'm getting this echo here. Speaking as a board member and not a councilman, I want the city to come to us and tell us what they want it for. Me personally. I mean, why do you need 300,000? Again, they've put it to good use, I think, with the shade and everything else. But at the same time, I mean, that does prevent another good organization from coming to us and asking.
No, but then they have organizations that come to them and say,
Yeah.
hey, we need $15,000 for Brewfest. Well, there's a pot over there in the
There you go.
PCDC fund that we can give you, and
Yeah.
I voted against that last year.
What do you think, Jeff? I saw you pull it close to you, so.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, he's
So-
gonna say something.
Yeah, so in thinking about it, it seems to me that one of the operative issues that we appear to be trying to address with, this proposal is what do we do about creating a bit of perpetuity in this kind of funding allocation? In the sense that if we make it publicly known that we're doing an upfront allocation of X amount of dollars, and through whatever reason, we do not expend X amount of dollars, I think the proposal is if we have some sort of vehicle in which that funding can reside and potentially grow to our benefit, which is also to our city's benefit, then I think that's more the focus of kind of what we're talking about from an operational perspective. Now, who can come and ask for money? Does it automatically go to the city? Those are very serious questions that, of course, we need to consider and discuss. But I might suggest that this is almost like a two-step deal. If we had a vehicle that allowed it to go in perpetuity, we may have a project that we know we want to do, but for whatever reason, we have to have $1 million in cash to make it happen. Maybe we have the opportunity to look ahead 2 or 3 fiscal years and say, oh, okay, we could do it then. A vehicle like this empowers us to be able to do that instead of either trying to do it in thirds or, just losing out, doing a partial investment, then something falls through, and then we've got something that really doesn't serve the purpose. So I think one is let's consider the vehicle completely under the control of the Pflugerville Community Development Corporation as one aspect. And then how, individuals, be it the city or be it community groups, approach us. And then we're that first line of filtering for, yeah, that's an appropriate project for these city funds to be used for. And then, we make a decision. It always goes to city council for approval. And then I think that's how we do the check and balance.
Sounds good.
But I think that the first thing is the vehicle.
Yes.
Setting up an account, recognizing it, interest bearing. Mr. Rosenfeld's right on target there. And I think that, that gives the opportunity. Let's not let money just sit idle. Let's let it work for us every single day, whether it's in something we give the city or if it's sitting idle and collecting them.
I agree.
Yeah. All right.
Let's see here. Also want to become a little bit more focused on ensuring our small businesses have the resources that they need to feel supported by our community. As an economic developer, I have a strong disdain for accidental entrepreneurs. Because a lot of times if you're an accidental entrepreneur, you have gone through all the wrong ways to do something. And if there's someone that can guide you and help you along the way, you can cut through all of the mishaps and all the booby traps, and you probably could hire people much faster, and you probably could grow your business much faster. But a lot of times, we are leaving things up to others to do it, and that makes me a little concerned. I'm sure other entities are doing a great job. Just for me, I need to make sure and see it. I need to have my eyes on it because I just need to have my eyes on it. I need to make sure that these businesses are receiving the resources that they need. I know that this organization historically has been very primary job driven, but a well has to start somewhere. A well doesn't just start as a big well. It starts off as a baby and grows to a big well. And so a lot of times I'm seeing economic development corporations are looking for that big fish. They're looking for the big bite or the Fortune 500 company to relocate their headquarters there. And trust me, y'all will not see anybody more happier for a groundbreaking for a Fortune 500 company to relocate here to Pflugerville. Y'all will have thought I lost my mind when that announcement occurs. But in the meantime, we have to build these organizations that are not even that far. Many of them are here from Fortune 5,000 to Fortune 1,000 to Fortune 500. That's kind of where things are now. A lot of cities aren't looking for the big fish to come to them. They're trying to figure out how to feed the small guppies that they have to become big fish and then hope that they don't leave and go somewhere else. Perfect example, you think about Raising Cane's. Everybody loves Raising Cane's who loves Raising Cane's, right? But I was sharing with the team, do you guys know where Raising Cane's come from? And they kind of was like, no. Baton Rouge, right outside the gates of LSU on States Avenue is where the first Raising Cane's started. Now, ask me where the headquarters is. Dallas, Texas. Delta Airlines, Monroe, Louisiana. A lot of people don't know that. It originally started off as Dust Crop. Where is the headquarter hub at now? Atlanta. If you don't invest in your businesses, another city will. And I've said this time and time again, no matter where I've been, I guarantee you there are several business and entrepreneurs who get in their car and go to Austin for resources. And so when they get the resources in Austin and they get the help in Austin, chances are they start looking for a space to open up their business in some co-working space, some accelerator, some lab. And guess where their business chances are going to be? In Austin. And so it's hard to say, hey, you live here, why not come and move your business here? I'm used to driving to Austin to get the resources. And so we have to reverse engineer that thought process and say, hey, you can live here, you can do your business here. We have good internet. Trust me, I've been very much appreciative of how quick the internet works here in this building. You can work from anywhere, right? Let's bring those resources here, and you'll hear me not just talk about it, but really work with this board and council to kind of guide creating an ecosystem for entrepreneurs. I know that the work has already kind of gotten started. You guys are well on your way, but I really want us to create this web where folks feel supported. They know where they can go to get those resources. I know you are ready to go.
Well, no, so no, I like that. And, talking about businesses relocating, I want to jump ahead one if you don't mind.
Sure.
Because, one thing you said is elevating Pflugerville's brand. And I know, look, marketing and communications can be touchy for many, but perhaps to help elevate the brand and maybe recruit and retain, perhaps focusing on a results-based, rather than a Raising Cane's is here, Raising Cane's went to Pflugerville, increased their sales by 30%. Maybe it's perhaps because I don't think we do enough of that, and maybe I'm wrong.
No,
City council, let me know. But
observation's observation.
I think, I think maybe that for the marketing communication efforts, I would just put, rather than just marketing communications, I would put results result stories. Austin is really good at telling stories. You know, whether it's a raise, whether it's revenue, and, you know, I think we need to copy that.
Well, and those are the kind of statistics and feedback that other developers and businesses absolutely appreciate, because they say, oh, well, 30%, that's awesome. Now, it's obviously a unique market down for that particular item. I mean, it's related to almost anything.
It shows that like we are good at showing our results, we are good at supporting.
You know, there's something else I think to consider here. I was just Googling for it, and it does not appear as an accepted phrase. So I'm going to coin it right now, planet-wide. I suggest we need to create a new metric around this. We call it entrepreneurial yield. What kind of return are we getting in terms of individuals that are beginning entrepreneurial exercises within our ETJ, for example? And I think that is the kind of thing that's really going to be very interesting to just about every municipality, because I guarantee you, no one can actually step up and say just how effective they are until they try to point to some business that comes in, and you don't really know how it grew, because what you've described is a very organic approach. You can go, you know, the artificial approach where we go out and we, you know, seduce someone into coming in, and also they're in place. And that can be a very rough transition. That can be a very dicey thing to do. But what's not at all dicey is the mesh that we can create by having a number of entrepreneurs who are, when adequately supported, we can reduce the failure rate. We increase our yield rate of successful businesses, and that's going to have, I think, a geometric effect just on the community itself. When people start seeing, oh, hey, they did manage to make it. Look at the great advice that they got from the PCDC and these other related groups. I really think that that's something that we could say, and that's a narrative nobody in the world is telling right now. And we could be the leaders in telling that narrative, saying we're tracking it. Here are how we measure it. These metrics, they aggregate up into providing the entrepreneurial yield, you know, of our community. So that's my suggestion.
And you can take the entrepreneurial yield, and as you dissect it, you'll find that it has an impact across the board.
And that makes the narrative all the more powerful. It really does, you know, and it tells and it speaks to so many of the things we've been marketing Pflugerville on anyway. We're the most diverse community that you can point to within, you know, 100 miles in any direction. And I think that that's something that we've underutilized in the past. And I really think it should be something much more kind of upfront. And if we can find that if the data actually suggests that, like, we've got entrepreneurs of all different sectors having success in the city. That's a really powerful narrative. You should be on CNN telling that story, or Fox, or whatever particular news venue you happen to select.
To get a new haircut for that CNN and Fox interview.
I would suggest, you know, you go with this one.
I think that diversity part is interesting, because obviously, you know, there's such a conversation nationally around it. And, you know, we say like, yeah, we're the most diverse, but what does that mean? Like, could it mean for businesses have a great experimental market for you to, you know, put your business in? Or
See, and Adam, that's where if we get ahead of the narrative, we can set those terms and conditions around what it means. And that's just all the more power for us.
I was just saying this earlier. I've been eardropping on us. Me and the mayor, I was just sharing with him coming here. He asked me if there was anybody or anything weird that I had encountered. And I literally said, there needs to be a white paper written on Pflugerville. Like, typically cities visibly show diversity through creating districts for their council persons. Mm-hmm. But this city is insanely just diverse in how they elect people of just all different. It's unheard of. You can't, I've really been kind of on the side trying to figure out what other city I could say, well, okay, it's just like that. But you just don't see that. And that really speaks to the eclecticness of this community. I don't think it gets discussed. And I think what we've historically done, when I look at the marketing items, we market to, and this is not a ding. It's a strategy, and that's what it is. But we've marketed our diversity to primary target industry types of, the story needs to be told from an umbrella perspective, and then allow it to trickle into other areas. But if we just go straight towards, and I'm not even gonna, straight towards a particular magazine, I'll just say it that way. And that's the magazine that we say, we're gonna be in a relationship with this magazine. If you don't read that magazine, chances are you won't hear about community X. So we have to really take a step back, and you'll see further in, it talks about a marketing strategic plan, because we need to know where we're not marketing and who we are missing out on based off of what we have to offer. It's the reverse. Instead of just throwing the message out at one target audience, first stop, who should we be targeting? Based off of what our SAYS document and what Aspire says, who should we be targeting? Now that we know who our target audience is, what do they use as a resource to find out about community, find out about economic development, community development? That's when we go and deploy our resources to go after and share that message. So it's a reverse. It's almost making the magazines and publications that we've historically just cut checks to defend while we're doing business with them.
You let the heart, or I'm sorry, you let the horse pull the cart.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
So ditto to what Councilman said.
Just want to say one thing on the, if you're going to do analytics, you have to not just look at what's doing good, but you also have to do the side of what you're not doing well. And then you have to take that part and drive those things back to those different businesses.
Oh,
Because
absolutely.
if you don't do that, me as a person, and I deal with a lot of companies, I'm going to ask you, okay, so show me all your great stuff. Show me what happened. What didn't work? And
Yeah.
why didn't it? And how that can impact me, because if it's the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
Why am I going to listen?
Completely agree. I like to use the baseball analogy. A major league position player who's considered really good bats in an average of about 302. What that means, though, is that he fails 7 of 10 times to reach base. So, and we learn when we go through crucibles. And I think that, those are invaluable. And so if there's a focus only on success, yeah, that's not good. But yield is exactly what it says, just like in semiconductor, right? When we have a yield that's too low, hey, that tells us something. We go investigate that. Yield's too high, that tells us something too. And we're looking at what the drivers are on both. So I think the point's well made. And I think I would consider it inherent in the concept that you absolutely look at, what are the positive drivers and the negative, because we want to maximize one and attempt to minimize or mitigate the others. But with that, I'm going to stop talking. Yeah, we're good.
Duly noted. And you'll kind of see where, when we get a little bit further in, you'll see where we not only touch that, but we kind of open it up to say, let's make sure we're not missing anything. And it kind of wraps around the whole conversation of the maturity of development of the city. And let me touch this one and then we'll jump to it. Where it talks about creating an opportunity for youth to consider entrepreneurship. So it's probably the most financial minimus part of this entire conversation. It'll probably be maybe 2 weeks. We're trying to identify kind of the bones of that. It'll be called Forge, of course, with a P. And so it's all about trying to shape and mold entrepreneurs who are either already have a business or thinking about a business, or their parents want them to learn how to get out of their wallet and purse and start a business. And so that is something that we'll be looking into. Like I said, it won't be a huge expense, and at the same time, we also don't want it to eat away at the time of what we have to do. And so let me keep going. Trying to bounce through these. Innovation and entrepreneurship, we've already touched on that. I did see in the SEDS document, and this document really is brought from the SEDS document. So I'm not a genius. I took what the SEDS document had and then said, okay, year one, what does this look like on the implementation plan? How do I integrate this into my capabilities of leadership along with the team? And so it talks about an innovation center, talks about wet lab. I can truly see and understand an innovation center. I need to warm up to how we go about wet lab. So I just need to, and I'll review some additional documents that Crystal and I have kind of talked about when it comes to the Innovation Center and wet lab, but we'll dive into that. I don't want to bring something to this board or even suggest something to this board that I myself cannot be convinced of. And so I'm not saying that I'm a gatekeeper, but if I'm coming to this board, I have to be convinced that this is the right direction to go in, fiduciary responsibility. And I need to be able to be confident and comfortable with sharing with this board. I think this is a great direction for this board to make the decision on spending its funds. We've discussed retail development. It kind of gives you the objectives, so to speak. We talked about parks and mixed use. It gives you the objectives on there as well. We talked about branding and marketing, again there. But when we get to development process, I read that section and I thought it was a little odd that there was this thought process that the PCDC was supposed to analyze or study the development fees or impact fees or fees period that the cities had approved through the ordinances of the council. I found that odd, to be honest with you, that the consultant even made that recommendation.
Didn't know what he was doing.
Obviously, I try not to say that. I tried not to say that. I don't know what the thought process was to that. And I do have a meeting scheduled with him, and that's probably going to be question number one besides, hi, my name is Jerry. Because I really want to know what made you think that was a great idea. But what I thought was there was a missed opportunity for a bigger conversation. And that was, if we know that we want to, and I'm going to use the name of the comprehensive master plan for the city, if we aspire to be this type of city when we are at our matured level, and we're all excited because this is what we've become, and we're here, what are the hurdles and what are the hindrances that stop us from getting here? The study or a plan, the study really should be, what is the things that are hindering us from being able to get there? And most people would say, well, Jerry, the strategic plan would identify that. Go back and read. Most strategic plans do not tell you in-depthly how to overcome the hurdles. They tell you how to implement what the plan says, but it never really, all it does is say, these are your weaknesses. And then it kind of goes, okay, so now moving on to opportunities. Wait, let's discuss these weaknesses. And have we deployed some kind of plan that takes those weaknesses and either become strengths or they become not so weak? We've learned how to kind of grow within those spaces. And that's kind of where I think that the conversation really should be. What are we missing? I've heard from council, I've heard from PCDC board members that we've missed projects, right? Well, the first thing that I think of when I hear that is, one, was it really a project that you wanted? That's the first thing. Did it fit in this community? Did it fit in the plans that the Aspire plan and the SEDS plan? If it didn't fit, did you really miss it? Was it even yours to begin with? And I think people see groundbreakings and ribbon cuttings happen in other communities and in the community impact, and then they started looking, going around, well, I don't see enough ribbon cuttings going around here. That may fit for them. It may not fit for here. Let's identify what's causing what should be coming here, what's taking it so long to get here. And whatever those hindrances are, this board and the council could work together to be able to resolve those issues, or at least look at those issues and have a very honest conversation about those particular issues. And I can keep going. Okay. We talk about business attraction. I think that that's pretty routine. But I have heard, and I want to just go on to say this, I have heard that if one, now look, I can't do anything about the spec buildings that have already been approved by planning and zoning. That is not my oversight. I cannot control that. But I'm going to do my best to diversify whatever it is that we work to attract. I can't get on the middle of 130 and stop all the spec buildings from coming. And I don't think that that's what I heard from the council or from the PCDC. I heard that just like the community is diverse, you want the business to be diversified as well. That's what I felt that I heard. And so we've done really great at spec buildings. We've done exceptionally well at spec buildings. We got plenty of those. Now let's look and see what other things we can get to come that can complement or add just as much value as those spec buildings add. And so that's where we are with in regards to that. So
I have a question. Sorry to interrupt, but on 4, I have a question about 4. Is there an entity, is there something within the city, or should it be within PCDC? Is there something that helps a developer to streamline the process, to go through things? Is there an entity in the city that it's their responsibility to kind of help that move as quickly as possible, as seamless as possible, to get to that end goal of being able to, start the creation of whatever it is the project is?
now I'm about to get in trouble. You're about to get me in trouble. So I have worked with and for cities for probably the last 13 years. And what I'll tell you that I've historically said to planning and zoning departments in both the state of Louisiana and Texas is, I will be glad when the day arrives that your budget is dependent upon sales tax the way mine is. Historically, planning and zoning individuals are very much so, if this is what their planning code says, this is what that planning code says. There is no creativity. There's no thought outside the box. This is what that book says that is supposed to occur. And so if it says 2 feet of right of way, I don't care how much business you bring into this community and how much of a return on investment it is, it's 2 feet, unless you want to go through the variance process. It's very by the book. And this is not just, I've not gone through the pleasantries just yet of working with planning and zoning here in Pflugerville, and I'm more than sure that they are a very spirited bunch and an amazing group to work with, unlike any other community. I'm speaking in reference to the communities that I've been a part of before, and it's just different. We as economic developers, we are real estate agents for the most part. And I think you've heard me say this before. We show the house and the buyer decides whether or not crown molding is really important to them or not. The planning and zoning department or the building services departments or the permits department, they're not really worried about whether or not the house is bought or sold, because of the reality is that you got to come regardless, one way or the other. Permits have to occur. you have to go through the building and planning and zoning process. And so there's not really this, we're working as the goal of developing the city occurs on both sides. But one side tends to be just a little bit more aggressive towards trying to lure. And so a lot of times you will find that most economic developers are the liaisons between the business and the cities, because economic developers are supposed to be able to speak 3 different languages: government, business, and citizens. Supposed to be able to speak 3 different languages. And a lot of times when I've sat in meetings so many times, I've seen so many projects almost die until I hear them look like they're getting ready to walk away. And I go, wait. Are we talking about 5 feet? Are we talking about brick, stone versus metal, composite, that nobody's going to see because it backs up against a bayou? Whoa, time out. Wait, what are we doing here? And it's like a light bulb comes on. Well, maybe we can do a variance. So a lot of times businesses have this thought process that says, this place isn't business friendly. And I'm not going to name the city, but when I spoke with a developer recently, you guys can guess who I'm talking about. I'm not going to confirm or deny, at least not while the cameras are still going. This particular city name came flying out of this developer's mouth to me and said, we hate working with them. They have a horrible reputation, right? You don't want that, because developers talk. If they don't do nothing else, they talk to each other and they share that. So when we identify those situations, it's really supposed to be up to economic developers to try and mend those relationships and kind of work across the aisle. But everybody has to want to play a part. Has to want to bring their toys to the toy box and work together. And sometimes that doesn't happen. And sometimes planning and zoning hides behind the UDC and says, well, we can't do it because the UDC doesn't say it. Just send them to a variance if that's the case, or go back and look and say, okay, if 20 people keep coming asking about this particular product, maybe we should consider how to change our code to maybe try this. So there's different, there is, I hope I answered the question.
No, let me help you.
No,
with that
let me
question.
say, can I say one more thing? The question is kind of centered around kind of the difference between all this stuff is here for you to, go through the process to do what development, and it's up for you to kind of go and do whatever, or someone in the city or PCDC, whoever it is, grabs you and pulls you along the process to make it as quick and as efficient as possible. That's kind of what I was asking. Is there some entity that will help, entities?
Let me address that in
Okay.
kind of hopefully a neutral way. Is that I know what you're getting at, and yes, we have a very sophisticated unified development code, and that is worked for the good and works for the bad sometimes, okay? At the end of the day, sometimes it's council's decision, and we just recently made a decision to deny an applicant's request. But as far as moving along a project, I would say that development services and not planning and zoning, I'm assuming that we've already been past the planning and zoning part. Now we're to the let's get the project going part.
Right.
And I think you'll find that, or we will find, depending on that project, we had somebody living at Amazon, kind of exaggerating.
Yeah.
City staff that helped them move that project along. There was a dedicated team for that. So yeah, we can do that, but I think it's not on all projects.
And I would just add that some EDCs that I work with, they have either they partly fund or it's an employee where they have like a navigator or a project development person that they can even offer sort of an incentive, right? For the right project, we'll provide you with this special navigator. I mean, I know Jerry's considering all staffing issues, but I'm sure he's thought about that too,
If
but
it's a gold project, it'll get pushed.
Well, see, that's kind of where I take exception with, my background is electronics. And when I used to deal with companies, these reps that deal with, various electronic circuits, if I just called and say, I'm interested in this part, can I get some samples? I wouldn't get a call back. But if I said, oh, I'm calling from IBM and give them some story about IBM, that's frustrating because you never know what brain fart, as I call them, I had that could be an IBM in a few years, and you grow with that. You grow with that. So I understand that, but I would. A comment you made about some unknown thing that when you said, people say, oh, I don't want to deal with them. Ideally, we should be in a position, or we should grow to this position where when people talk about Pflugerville, they say, man, dealing with Pflugerville is wonderful. Boom, it went like this, it flew, whatever, as opposed to, yeah, I don't want to deal with that. Those guys are a pain in the butt, That's all I'm trying to.
I think that's a roller coaster every city rides.
Right, yeah. Anyway, just wondering. Thanks.
So overall, year one priorities, relationship building, I think that's important. It's the very first thing on the list. I just believe in it. Strategic planning is important. Data collection and analysis. I hate not knowing what I don't know. And especially when someone's sitting across the table from me expecting to get a service from me, and I can't provide it because I don't know what I don't know. That's just, it's not helpful to anybody. Marketing communications. I look at marketing and communications extremely different from most. I think not only do you have to tell Pflugerville's story, but I really believe that you empower the businesses that are here to help tell it for you. Most site selectors tend to go, yeah, Jerry, we don't want to hear what you have to say. But if they go on our Facebook or our LinkedIn or our Instagram page and they see a business that does robotics that says, hey, I could have gone anywhere else, but I planted my feet here in Pflugerville, and my business has done X, Y, and Z. When the pandemic occurred, I was able to transition and be able to do this, and it kept me afloat. And this community is who I have to thank for that. When businesses are sharing that story and other businesses get a hold of that and see that, the work is already, the ball has already gotten started at that point. I mean, at that point, you just having the conversation of saying, where can we place you? Where can we help you, get settled in, versus having to work with, hey, I know you've heard horrible things about us, but we want to start, that's a horrible place to start from. And thank goodness, so far I've not heard that, so we don't have to start from that position. So that's kind of where I think we really, and I'm talking about from primary to secondary businesses, not just our, primary jobs, but I'm talking about having all of our businesses be a part of that. One of the things that I shared with Crystal, and I'll obviously in bringing in conversation with this board, I think because the council meetings are public meetings, that they're recorded, that people are able to watch them, I think it's a missed opportunity, and I'm going to bring it to the mayor and to the council, I guess right now too, is every month, and maybe just once a month, having a business register with us, PCDC, and for us to go to that meeting and introduce that business to the community. It gives the council an opportunity to see a business owner. It gives that council, it gives that business owner an opportunity to be able to see that councilman and the community as a whole. I think those are missed opportunities. I think it gives that business owner an opportunity to kind of feel as though, even though they're only just talking about their business and the services that they provide for 3 minutes in probably public comment. At the same time, it gives them a sense of community and a sense of worth and value that they were able to make that presentation to their public governing body. So when we talk about marketing, we talk about communications, I'm really thinking about a holistic approach and project management. And we'll dive off into that probably I'm really, I want to, my goal is to be objective and to not just walk in and just say, okay, well, at my previous job, the chairs sit there, and so the chair should sit there here. Well, wait a minute. The chair, why does the chair have to be there? The chair probably shouldn't have been where I came from, right there. So I want to make sure that we're looking at policy, that I'm looking at projects, that I'm really kind of thinking through each and every item that we're doing and kind of really say, does this really feed what we're trying to accomplish? And if it doesn't, bring it to this board and let you all make the decision. You will hear me say this time and time again. As executive director, I execute what I'm directed to execute. That is my role. Nothing more, nothing less, is to execute what I've been directed to do. And so this is the draft.
You said this was your first 100 days?
No, this is first year. My nickname is gonna be Superman.
I have a comment just on the data collection analysis piece. I'm a firm believer in owning my data. So for those tools and utilities that are not homegrown, if we use a third party, we not, of course, own the data, but we need to be able to recreate, manipulate, forecast, do whatever it is if that entity goes away. You know, one of the things I'm working on, there's going to be a little box in the corner of my home that's going to run my own large language model. I'm not going to be using ChatGPT in the cloud and all those guys. It's going to be my machine, complete privacy. I can do with what I want and don't have to worry about people tracking. So we should always own our data and own the ability to recreate that data and manipulate that data offline. If that entity goes away, you're screwed.
Oscar, that's interesting. And I think you're absolutely correct, because geez, you get on that phone and everybody knows your business.
Right.
Thank you, Jerry, for going through this. And this is like setting the table. This is Jerry's first opportunity to give us that view that he has of what he sees as the goals that he's going to be focusing on going through this first year. And this is being done and presented in a way, like he says, it's not set in stone. I mean, it's trying to get very close to the pin. But this was truly intended for us to have the kind of conversation we had so he can get that feedback from us. So and there are things that I know that Jerry has in here that he's thinking through and we didn't get into in our discussion here, but he's trying to dig a little bit deeper to get to things that will be effective in PCDC and the community overall, attracting type of industries and folks into our area of Central Texas and be that catalyst that makes a difference. So this was, I thought, a great starting point. He's not trying to reinvent the wheel, but he's trying to keep focus on what's important. So don't hesitate as you're looking through this to continue to provide additional comments to Jerry, because I know he appreciates very much what we have to share with him. Is there anything else that you wanted to add, Jerry?
Thank you.
Sir. So where we are right now, that closes out item 5C, that 2025-0195 item. And now we're going to move to the piece of the agenda that takes us into executive session. So this will be item 5D. Let me introduce this. It's item 2025-0196. Number one, executive session item deliberation in accordance with sections 551.071 and 551.087 of the Texas Government Code to discuss economic development negotiations and financial information received from businesses expanding or relocating in the city of Pflugerville, and to seek legal advice regarding such projects, incentives, negotiations, and performance agreements of compliance, including projects, Extra Care, Insidium, Helios Way, Impact Way Phase 4. Item 2 of the executive session will be item 551.071 consultation with attorney regarding pending litigation with 15508 Impact Way LLC, the Pflugerville Community Development Corporation et al. Case 123-CV-00914, U.S. District Court for the Western District of Texas. Item 3, executive session item deliberation in accordance with sections 551.072 of the Texas Government Code to discuss the sale, purchase, or lease of real property. And that'll be Project Greenfield. And 4, the final item for our executive session discussion tonight will be discussion of personnel matters pursuant to Chapter 551.074 of the Texas Government Code, including the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee. And the items, areas will be Deputy Director, Assistant Director of Business and Retail Recruitment, Business Retention and Workforce Development Coordinator, and Business Recruitment Coordinator. And the time that I have right now is 6 minutes after 7. Without executive session. Back, but we can go ahead and move forward. We have 6 of us present. So the time is 8:34 and we are out of executive session. No action was taken. Going to item 6A. Open session items, discuss and consider action on executive sessions items as needed. In regard to that item 6A 2025-0197, I will make a motion that with regard to Essentium, that it has been deemed that they are not a collectible debt. And I moved as that the board direct our attorney to close out the agreement.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
That is all present, so the vote is 6-0. There is no further items to consider. This meeting is adjourned.
All right. You ride a motorcycle?